Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. We're going to check out a special selection today, which is where one of you tell me exactly what it is I need to check out. Today's comes at us from Anton. Deathspell Omega, Onward, where most with Ravin I may meet. I like this band's name. I think I bring this up every time. It just sounds so cool. It's like a 10th level necromancer spell. It sounds awesome. And also at the same time, so very metal. It really is a really great name. But I don't think the band's ever clicked with me, which I think is a bit of a shame because I do like their name so much. But, let's get into it. I'm pretty sure this is some black metal. It comes off of their 2016 album. Let's find out what Deathspell is doing today. Some really interesting triplet ideas on the bass. You know what it reminds me of? If Car Bomb were less core and more metal. It's also more avant-garde than I expected. It feels like the drummer wants to introduce some I forgot what I was saying. Look at the volume. It's barely coming down at all. This is just wall of sound chaos.
Deepest of all the
That's kind of a nice groove there. Yeah, interesting also, we're doing 3 bars of 4 and a bar of 3, which I noticed a bit earlier, but never quite picked up on the pattern. So we have 3 bars of 7/8, a bar of 3/4, and a bar of 6/8. So 3 bars of 7 and a bar of 6, alternating 14-13. I like his little ornamental ideas. Sounds like grass just out on the sides. For a moment, I got to hear some of their chord work, and it was very interesting. really like the cymbal work over here. Ooh. Bro, for real? Y'all had a beautiful little note to end that on. And you couldn't just leave that as was. You had to change it up to that super tense chord. Okay, so we're going to do things a little differently here today. Uh, First off, I just want to say that the first 6 minutes were like the longest 6 minutes of my life, and the last four went by in a blur. The song was over before I knew it. It was rough getting into this one though. So I said we're doing things a little differently today. Y'all probably know my grievances with black metal. Y'all probably know my grievances with avant-garde metal. I don't think I'm going to express much negativity today, since I feel like it is often retread ground. This is a very abrasive sound sonically, the way that the instruments sound. It's very abrasive harmonically. It is way over the top. It is ridiculously large. There's growling in here. There's just a lot of stuff that is, it creates hurdles for people to enjoy it. It is, as many would say, an acquired taste. I don't think we need to cover any of that ground. I've said it so many times about black metal. So I'm going to focus primarily on what I think they do interesting or well that separates them a bit from other extreme metal groups. Um, but by no means should people take have a takeaway from this video that because I didn't bring up anything negative that I enjoyed this. There were parts of it that were neat. And I would not mind listening to the last 4 minutes again, but at the same time, those last 4 minutes are put into context because of just how crazy the first six are. So I don't know that they would work on their own, and I really don't want to listen to the first six again. This is just not my cup of tea. This is not any of my cups of tea. This is coffee, and I don't drink coffee. That's how different this is from what I normally engage with sonically. So yeah, I'm not going to be talking anything negative, but I didn't really enjoy this. To begin with, I really like the way that they introduce dynamics. I think this is an interesting topic because of where they come from foundationally. They are a black metal band, and black metal has a very interesting experimental second wave, and post black metal can get very odd and weird and adventurous at times. But I still really have a strong idea of what black metal is based on their first and third wave movements. Sort of thrashy, wall of sound, poor production, or a low fidelity production, we'll go with a more neutral term, and repetition. sometimes with interesting harmonic qualities. That's black metal to me. That is the foundation of the sound. It is not a dynamic genre, at least in the way that it became. First wave is Inception, second wave was experimental, but third wave is the staple. It's what the genre is now. It's what post black metal is compared against. It is the sound of it. So while there are some more interesting styles of black metal out there, third wave is the stereotypical kind, and it is very static. This is anything but. First of all, there's no 4/4. There's no 3/4. Well, there is some 4/4 in here, but it's to me it's rare. There's always something odd going on, whether it is an odd phrasing. We might do a few bars of 4/4, but we're not going to do only bars of 4/4. Maybe the fourth bar of a phrase will be 3 or 5, and it's going to upset the feeling of the full phrase. There are many sections that play around with a triplet feel, but never exclusively. Once again, they're a big fan of changing things up for the final bar of a phrase. In fact, I pointed out two places there where we had 3 bars of something odd and then a bar of 4/4 or 3/4 to stabilize the final bar, but destabilize the phrase as a whole. And even there at the end, I mean, the idea of taking it from a few bars of 7/8, which already introducing the 7/8 is a bit odd because I think it's the first time and only time we have an odd number of beats in a bar, but then we don't even allow it to be fully symmetrical because the fourth bar ends up being 6/8, which pulls off half of a beat. Sorry, half of a beat from the bar. Um, and just makes it so we lurch into the next bar even sooner than the 7 already lurches us, which is half a beat shy of 4/4 of our typical phrase. It already felt like we were skipping over and tumbling over the bar line into the next too early. And then at the end they're like, well, let's just cut off another half. Let's tumble into it even earlier this time around. So they they play around with timing a lot in here, and not even just with that. There are some sections that are straight 4/4 and rhythmically just create a ton of juxtaposed ideas, tons of syncopation in there. All 3, 4 instruments. I don't know if there's 2 guitars or not, but the drums, the bass, the guitar, and maybe a second guitar are all doing totally different things rhythmically. It is just cacophonous, but also really difficult to find the rhythm for. And so, rhythmically, this is just a vastly dynamic song. We also have dynamics in uh, harmony. Now, I will admit, I did not pick up a lot of this. There were a couple of sections when the noise kind of died out a little bit and allowed me to focus on what notes were being played. It's very interesting because I have this problem in a lot of black metal because of the production, and here the production is very clear, but it's produced in a way where the attack takes precedence over the note. So drum hits, guitar strums, any percussive sounds coming off of how the bass is played, the growling, the texture of the growls, all of this sort of takes precedence over tone. It's a very bizarre type of production that I think works for what they're going for, but it means that even though the production was exceptionally high fidelity and I could make out every instrument, I still had a tough time making out notes. But there were a couple of times when the window kind of opened and I could peer in and actually hear the notes for what they were, and they were playing with some really spicy sounds that were more harmonious than I would have expected. There's still some very eclectic, experimental, dissonance-based sections in this track, but the moments when the noise kind of died down and they explored more of a quieter, less chaotic phrase, I heard some really cool ideas. I mean, as usual with black metal, they were Baroque. I don't know what it is with black metal really loving Baroque chord theory, but they do. and just beautiful. Really, I would love to hear a non-metal arrangement of this, even if it's not a large arrangement. Don't do it for a whole orchestra. Just, a string quartet. I want to know what that sounds like. I bet it sounds phenomenal, but it's all hidden beneath the noise and just kind of creating a situation where the noise wouldn't be at play. I wonder if there is sheet music for this or if someone's made tabs. That's probably more accurate than sheet music. I wonder if I can go to Ultimate Guitar and find this track. It's old enough. We're looking at 7 years here. I could arrange a classical version of this. That's on my to-do list for this week, I think. See how difficult that would be. Because this is a complex song, regardless of anything else. Like, it's going to take time to arrange. I gotta see if I can find some source material, though. Because I am not transcribing this by ear. That is not going to happen. Anyways, yeah, some really nice harmonic diversity going on in here. And there's even some really cool ornamental ideas. There's some brassy sounds that appear every now and then. There's a few different cymbals that get utilized other than just a traditional ride. There's something that feels, I don't know, it feels like a really big hi-hat. Like if we made a hi-hat out of a ride cymbal and then we cut holes out in it to reduce some of the vibration as well, to increase the shimmer of it. That's what I heard. That one time when I pointed it out near the end, like with 2 minutes to go, and I was like, the symbol over on the right is really nice. It was during the blast beat section. That's what it sounded like to me because he was hitting it and we were getting the immediate tinging off of that, but it sounded like it was vibrating against another piece of metal. Doesn't necessarily mean that it was some ride hi-hat Frankenstein thing, but it was vibrating against something else that was shimmering. It was just a very cool sound. And so we do have a bit of dynamic range on the timbre side as well. Basically, I mean, just at the end of the day, this song moves through a lot of different ideas, a lot of different rhythms, many different harmonic ideas, and it's black metal prog. In a way that is, oh, well, we can't even ignore the rhythmic stuff at the beginning when I called them car bomb, but more metal, less core. Um, I mean, it's just a song that you can't really take a moment to breathe in. There's always something interesting going on, which is just so different from my idea of stereotypical black metal. I do enjoy the production of it. I lightly touched on it just now, but everything is clear. It has its own production for sure that it's difficult for my ear to get around. It might just be a matter of experience. The more I listen to something like this, the easier it'll be to hear past the wall. But everything is clear. Right from the start, we heard the bass guitar underneath playing this nice little groove down there. That is very unique for black metal. Sort of a lot of metal. Such a shame. But yeah, so the bass is present, has a nice line, isn't just repeating what the guitars are doing, already standing on its own two legs. Love it. The guitars are very clearly heard on either side. The drums are very clearly heard. I'm not even going to say there's any weird muddiness that goes on. Black metal just really likes muddy, flat bass kicks for some reason. But everything here is crisp and clean. It's a very modern, poppy type of production where everything has space and room and presence. Very not black metal. The vocals are clear too. I could make out words sometimes if I decided to really hone in on what the vocals were doing. Granted, a lot of it was more of this raspy, talky growl thing. It wasn't full on growling, but it was definitely more of a harsh type of spoken word. Um, but yeah, I could make them out. It's just nice clarity everywhere, which I think is necessary. If we were to take this chaotic performance and this chaotic composition and pair it with lo-fi black metal or even an ultra compressed sort of 90s style of metal sounds, it would just become a muddy mess of sound. You wouldn't really be able to make anything out, and I think it would lose a lot of its appeal and impact. Deathspell Omega, at least with this selection, stands out from their contemporaries by playing technical music and making sure that you can hear what they're playing. It's not about being super muddy and creating an atmosphere through the raw texture of the white noise. It's about creating an atmosphere and just having this raw presence of composition. In a lot of ways, this isn't too different from black metal. The final result is pretty much the same as most black metal, which is just wall of sound, max volume, atmosphere. But they achieve that not through production that overfuzzes and overcompresses. They do it from a cleaner production with an overwhelming amount of music. Which is very interesting because I want to compare this listen really quick to one of my earliest exposure to black metal, and I'm blanking out totally on the name. It was like a 20-minute instrumental track of just 16th note picking and blast beats, and I was completely worn down. It was the first time I heard anything like it, and at the end, I was just like, I was drained. I was like, I never want to hear anything like that again. Fast forward 3 years and black metal's a staple on the channel, but I'm not fatigued by black metal anymore. I get it in a sense. I still don't really like it, but I get it. This put me in that same position. I was tired while listening to this. It is exhausting to experience. It, like I mentioned, does black metal the same way a lot of other black metals does by creating this overwhelming weight. In a lot of ways, this is more black metal than I think I expected beginning this analysis, but it's just that they achieve it through composition rather than production, and really making this connection with my introduction to this style of music and realizing how far I've come listening to black metal. And finding that there's still some black metal out there that can put me in that same state of just mental wipeout. It was pretty cool to kind of be like, oh, there's still some surprises here. And it's not just surprises of we're trying to get Bryan to enjoy this, it's surprises like, oh, this can still be overwhelming to me. Because I think I've mentioned recently that black metal sort of becomes this background noise. The consistency and rigidity of the rhythmic elements and of the white noise of it all, the overdrive and compression, it sort of just becomes background noise. The lack of dynamic elements is kind of what pushes me away from it because I find black metal to mostly be kind of boring, especially when we're talking about the stereotypical third wave stuff. And this was invigorating in a sense. It gave me that same level of fatigue I experienced the first time. Which, mind you, sounds like it's a positive, and it kind of is. But it really isn't. Like I said, I never want to listen to this again, which I haven't said about black metal in a very long time. Production, composition, ornamental stuff, dynamics. I think I hit everything I wanted to talk about. I'm going to hit some lyrics real quick, and then we'll wrap this up. Alright, just to preface, I have no idea what's going on here. Well, first of all, let me read you the first two lines, and you'll understand one of my biggest hurdles here. In secretist conveyance, I say, forfeit all tongues to death as hitherto they maintain the memory of the prime architect. The language is a bit something. Definitely going for an older English, utilizing a very wide vocabulary. It is interesting to read. At one point, it says that the language, mockery of the Logos, that taste bitter ashes alike and mimic exploding hiss by repetition, incantation, and privation of the psyche. Thou shalt summon words that to the mind are bane, and forevermore close your soul to the heavenly stars. You may lament aloud, dawn shall henceforth rise within a suffocating tomb. It sounds neat, which probably makes me sound nerdy. But I do really appreciate um, the old English kind of stuff, hitherto and henceforth, and furthermore, it's it comes off as a bit much. It comes off as a bit cheesy to me. It's that heightened element that metal likes to dwell within, sometimes just musically, sometimes visually, sometimes viscerally, and in this case, lyrically. The language is heightened to extreme levels. But I'm a huge fan of larger vocabularies, and I love seeing the variation here. I mean, in this one song, we have probably a good 50 or 60 lines. There's a lot of lyrics in here that I don't remember hearing that much of. There is no verse chorus idea. Everything seems to be linear, moving forward, and it reads more poetically than lyrically. It's interesting at all that they found a way to work it into the song given just how non-lyrical it feels. And yet, even while saying it, despite the fact that I don't really see any strong syllabic flow throughout it. There's not much of a rhyme scheme at all. I'm not going to say that they're really looking at how syllables, specifically ending syllables of words, flow or are repeated. It's free form poetry, honestly, without any um, care given to rhythm, cadence, rhyme, sound. There's nothing in here that goes towards alliteration or anything, so to speak. It's written like prose, honestly. And actually, my closest thing here might be the Bible, the way that it kind of creates its own type of freeform poetry. Again, not really looking at rhyme schemes or cadence or, meter or anything like that, but it's still written out in lines, stanzas. It is poetic. It is poetry, just not too concerned about the language itself. It's more concerned about telling the story, regardless of what words are utilized. And that's sort of what this feels like, which I guess even goes into the element that there's religious elements here as well. I, again, I don't know what to make of any of this, but I'm going to point out a couple of lines where there are these religious components to it. Says, the further the abasement of man, the more he thinks of himself as angelic throng, just and saintly. Furthermore, it says, with ceaseless prayers, the generate song, and obsequious discipline, for thy flesh is nothing but a receptacle for law ironclad, ever since thy volition sunk into the deepest of abysses. Thou shalt accept thy revelation as your beginning and your end. All other things you are to abjure with spite. What thy Lord commands with repulsive voice tolerates neither addition nor love nor faith, only prevenient submission and servitude to the utmost limits of the fearful self. O Father, Intros, witness thou anon the rotten splendor of what once was thy realm, now shivering at the black threshold of the grave. Actually, that line begins to speak to me a little bit. It seems to be hearkening back to the satanic lyrical lines of first wave black metal. We have, assuming this is supposed to be the Judeo-Christian God, the Father, if you will, as stated earlier, that our narrator, our vocalist, is destroying the earth, the thing that they created. It was once your realm. And now I'm destroying it. It's a shivering at the black threshold of the grave, deprived of the compass of duality. There's just evil here now. It certainly feels like somebody working and accomplishing goals for Satan against God. That's kind of what I'm getting here. Again, I'm not going to say it's a really strong understanding of it, and it's based off of just a few lines and trying to connect some stuff, but that's sort of my read, is that it goes back to some of the satanic imagery of First Wave, while working within a post-black metal, experimental avant-garde range of musicality, while still achieving the same overwhelmingness that earlier black metal created through production, just now in composition. It's a really interesting step forward for black metal that isn't any less abrasive, isn't any less overwhelming, and still works within those realms of evil and darkness and Satan, possibly, but doing it in a modern lens. Very interesting. I have a lot of respect for what Deathspell Omega is doing, but I don't know that I'm ever going to look forward to them. I think this is our second or third track we've checked out from them, and like I said, they've never really clicked with me. They take the abrasion up to the next level. Those are my thoughts on Deathspell's Onward, where most with Ravin I may seek. Let me know what you thought of this one. Did you enjoy it? Was there anything that stood out to you? Anything you'd like to add on to what I said? Correct me on, give me your own perspective on whatever. Toss all that down in the comments section. Above that, in the description box is a link for Linktree. It'll take you to this menu right here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. Alright, that wraps it up for today. I'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC as usual. We're going to check out some more music. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.